All right, great. So we're looking for questions from the audience. We'll start right over here.
Yeah, based on what you've done now, how would you go about finding listeners for a podcast and like getting new listeners for your podcast? How do you do that? What are your thoughts on that?
Was everybody able to hear that question? How do you go about recruiting new listeners for your podcast? So if someone's starting a podcast out there, how do you build an audience?
That's a trick, isn't it? That's the $1 million question. If it's a brand new podcast, you want to build an audience. Well, you get it on iTunes, you butter up to all the other podcasters out there, send them in promos, ask to be on their shows, or just get on the forums and be friends with every other comic fan out there, and eventually they'll listen to your show. If you already have a show and you're trying to expand it, that's even harder, because that's what we've all been trying to do for 3 years, and we've I think at this point we've kind of maxed out on the potential audience of current comic fans who are big internet junkies who own iPods. I think that we're about where we can go with that without personally introducing ourselves to every single comic fan in the world and saying, by the way, you should listen to our podcast. One of the things that we're trying to do is, we started this magazine, and every issue there's a column about podcasting. And it's going to cover something that's happened in podcasts right now. It's doing a little history of comic podcasting. And hopefully people who read magazines, maybe they never listen to podcasts. And maybe we'll reach a couple thousand people who've never heard of podcasting before. And maybe 100 of them will go listen to podcasts of any of our shows. And so then, okay, great. And then another issue will come out, maybe 10 more people will listen. So just keep chipping away and tell your friends, if you listen to podcasts, tell them. Download it for them, put them on a CD, give it to them, something. Because they're not going to do it on their own, because people are just kind of lazy like that. And
admittedly, we were lucky in that I think all of us here, when we started, there weren't as many choices. So we were just lucky enough to be amongst the first, and there was only 50 or so podcasts when you went and searched on iTunes or comic. Now there's 150 to 200 comic podcasts, so it's harder now to break through and get noticed. And I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to tell you. Actually, people ask us that a lot. What I'm trying to tell them is to try to be specific and specialize, because there are tons of general comic podcasts or Hero League Books podcasts. But if you can find a niche that's not being filled, then there's an audience there for you. It's harder to break through the general show, not because there's so many, but if you do like a X-Men podcast, which already is, but if you pick a book or something that's got a fandom, that could be your way in. But it's difficult because there's so many choices.
I think that's our challenge now. Like what's been interesting in the past 2-3 years has been, we all started doing podcasts and we just showed up. And and so while I agree and slightly disagree, Brian, that we've kind of hit the ceiling of kind of comic geeks and podcasts, or whatever, is that I sit down and I look at the diamond charts and I see new vendor sells 100,000 copies, and I sit down and I look at Apple's stock filing and I say
they delivered.
Yes, sure, yes, but they delivered 100,000 copies, so potentially 100,000 copies are out there. And I look at Apple's, stock filing and how many iPods are sold and stuff like that. And if you ask me, now it's just now we're just getting started. Now the work is going to start. And it's just a matter of looking for unique distribution channels, not depending on iTunes, looking for ways to get in front of people, and the viral thing, tell your friends, all that kind of stuff. Because for everybody who's in the know, with the thousands of people who listen to podcasts, for me, I see an unlimited audience to go.
I think currently, and that's right, but I think currently we're totally at the mercy of the listeners. Right now, that's the best thing that we can do, is to be like, if you like this, please tell somebody else you think may like it. And I think it's been really helpful, in message boards and all those things. It's like word of mouth right now. It's the best thing, because none of us have marketing budgets, and we just blow that money. So.
I was going to say, it sounds like from a more general, how do you generate readers or whatever, there's a couple things. One is giving away something free, right? And that's what pretty much everyone is doing, is giving away this awesome information, opinion, whatever it is that people kind of want to hear. The second thing is creating two-way dialogue. And I think that a lot of podcasts that aren't comic stuff that I listen to, it's just one way. That's kind of, we don't really have a forum on I Read Comics, but allowing some sort of participation, really, that's just really going to generate a lot of fire in people and get them to interact a little bit more. And I think that the more that certain podcasts do that, the more easy it is to talk about viral, and that's really the biggest thing right there. Is people will just come on just because they, heard that you're saying something about a certain book they like, and suddenly they're part of that community, and that just builds and they tell their friends. So.
It is a lot, when you talk about the listeners, it's a lot about like getting them to listen and getting them to keep coming back and doing the whole thing, having them feel like it's part of the community, which is for us meant like the big thing. But we're friends sort of. And I make friends with my listeners, so it works both ways. And there's people who are like, there's listeners we have who are sending us emails and voicemails and stuff, and we could not live without them. And they know it. Thank God for Daryl.
And having your regularly scheduled broadcasts also.
Doing it every time on time is huge.
That used to be much more the case. It used to be. It's
I'm wrong?
No, you're not wrong. It was a very true statement 2 years, I think, ago. It's if you came out with a podcast every week or whatever regular schedule, once a week, twice a week, twice a month, whatever. If you were consistent, if you were entertaining, if you were everything that you've heard in a million other podcasts or message board threads about how to do a podcast, if you did those things, chances are your listenership was going to go up, and it was going to go up steadily. Now there are so many podcasts out there, and I keep plugging in a few of my favorites, but the Quiet Panelologists at Work. Witty, funny, entertaining, smart, and I don't know what their listenership is, but that is a really good podcast that if they had started 6 months before they did, or a year before they did, it'd be huge. But they're kind of lost in the kind of muddy waters that common podcasts have become. And we used to say that the dance floor was full. Well, now the dance floor is even more full. It's turned into a mosh pit. And so how do you get more listeners? I don't know. We're really lucky that we started when we did. To start around comics right now, forget it. Yeah,
All the good URLs are taken too, so.
I don't have much to add except it's sometimes a difference between what you want out of your podcast, right? You can always want more listeners, but for me, I'm not really concerned about having that many more listeners because it's just not my thing. I would rather have a small group of people who listen consistently. And I'm the worst when it comes to putting things out on time because I was sick forever and blah, blah, blah. Just so many excuses. But some of my favorite podcasts that I listen to that are not comics related come out very infrequently. And I don't care. I just listen to them when they come out. There's one called Quackcast, which is all about alternative medicine scams. And the guy puts it out when he feels like it, essentially. But it's so good. It's so well done that it doesn't matter to me that it comes out once every 2 months or maybe once every 6 months. It's just when it comes out, then I listen to it. The fastest way, if you just want to make a splash, is to interview a famous person, because everybody will want to listen to that, or to rant about something and say really controversial things. That'll get your listeners, but who wants to do that every episode? People write to me and ask me to do that. Oh, it's so much fun when you rant about things you hate. Well, yeah, but it's not that much fun for me. I mean, I don't want to rant about things I hate every single episode. But those are, I think most of us find that those are some of the most listened to are the controversial ones, where people come with maybe an unpopular opinion on something or they're really going to slag something off.
Who wants to be the O'Reilly factor of comics?
Yeah, exactly. That's no fun.